Every month the parade passed through my hometown, but we were never allowed to look at it. I found out the horrifying reason why when my friend broke the rule. I lived in a small forest town called Point Pine for the first 10 years of my life before we moved to Arizona. My parents never spoke of it again after we left. They acted like it never existed, and to them, I guess it didn't. I learned early that any questions about Point Pine would be met with punishment. When my sister Felicity wrote a school project about our life there, my mom found it and burned it in the backyard. That afternoon, my parents took Felicity to her room, where I heard her crying out in pain every few minutes. From that moment, neither of us mentioned Point Pine again. Point Pine was filled with strange rules that seemed normal at the time. At the Point Pine bakery, Mr. Terrence always knew what you were about to order, and you had to tip him with old clothes you'd outgrown. Every year on your birthday, you had to get blood work done at Point Pine Labs for reasons no one understood. Everyone had to be awake at 8:13 a.m. when speakers around town would blast a wailing alarm, followed by parents frantically waking their children like the house was on fire. But the strangest thing was the Point Pine monthly parade. It happened every month without fail, never on the same date. A student from Point Pine High was always chosen to be in it. The weird thing about this parade was that we weren't allowed to watch it. Not from the streets, not from windows, not even on television. We weren't even allowed outside when it passed through. You always knew when the parade was starting because you'd hear a chorus of voices like a church choir singing a melody that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The sky, the ground, the trees, the buildings. Like everything in Point Pine was singing. Once you heard the first note, you had 5 minutes to get inside a building with locks. In Point Pine, not many buildings had locks. If you were caught outside, you had 3 options. One of the schools, the staff room in Point Pine Bar, or the fridge in Point Pine Pizza Shop. One August, my friend Lee and I decided to break the rule. We spent half the month hanging around the Point Pine Library waiting for the parade to come down that street. During the 3rd week, while sitting on the library steps, we heard the music start. Lee and I ran into the forest while everyone else raced to the nearest school. We went far enough that someone on the street wouldn't see us, but stayed close enough to see part of the road. This year, my sister's friend Reed was chosen for the parade. She was a few years older, but they were friends because Reed used to live next door. We crouched in the bushes waiting. The chorus of voices got louder, meaning they were getting closer. "Dude, I totally see it," Lee hissed. I straightened up, trying to see what Lee was seeing, but I was always short, so he towered over me. "I can't see anything," I hissed back. "Shh, they might hear us." I stopped moving and waited for them to pass right in front of my line of sight. "Oh no! Oh crap!" Suddenly, Lee dove to the ground, landing in fetal position with his head in his hands. "What?" I asked, looking from him to the street. "I saw her. I saw that girl," he exclaimed. "Reed?" I asked, looking over to spot her. Lee grabbed me and slammed me to the ground. "You don't want to look at it," Lee said. For the first time in all the years I'd known him, Lee looked absolutely terrified. I turned my back on the parade and sat down to look at Lee instead. "What did you see?" I whispered. "Those things, they did something to her. They're eating her, Cody. But she doesn't even care." Lee had his head in his hands and was crying now. I sat with my back to the parade, no longer wanting to see. I heard the singing get louder. "Cody." I heard the voices calling. "Don't look," Lee whispered. "Cody, Cody." Now the voice sounded like Reed. "Look at us, Cody." I shut my eyes. The voices continued for a few minutes, and at one point, Lee started wailing. I kept my eyes shut the entire time. After it moved along and continued through town, we heard everyone come out of their hiding places. I stood up and helped Lee get up. He kept his head down. "Lee, what's wrong?" I asked. I could hear him sniffling. "Lee?" He finally responded as he lifted his head. It took my eyes. I will never forget the dark bleeding holes in Lee's face and the cuts around his skin. I threw up in the forest for 3 minutes before I could help lead him out. A few adults saw us and got our parents, who came immediately. The day after that, my family moved out of Point Pine. I never knew what became of Lee. Minutes after we left, my parents acted like Point Pine never existed. It was never discussed, and I never had the nerve to ask about Lee again. As far as I know, Lee was the only person who ever saw the parade, and he was never able to see anything else after that. I don't know if Point Pine still exists. I'd like to check it out again, but even if I knew where it was, I don't think I'd ever go back. I have a feeling I wouldn't get a warm welcome, although I can't shake the thought that my parents were somehow still connected to the town, even after all those years.